You know, when I lost my dad, I lost my best friend. The world feels different to me now, and I bet it feels different to you too. He didn't make it to Christmas this year, but whenever he walked into a room, it would light up like a Christmas tree. That was my dad. I'm a fortunate kid. I got to have him for 29 years. As a baby with chubby cheeks, as a middle and high schooler, as a kid in college he had to yell at every once in a while. To an adult, molded in his image, but raised in a way in which I could mold pieces of myself as well. Together we were Duke and Luke, and we always will be. As you can imagine, I've spent the last few weeks looking through a trunk of my dad's mementos, letters, and old photos going back 70 years. I've run into photos of him where he's younger than I am now, and artifacts I've never seen before. And as funny as it sounds, it feels like I'm getting to meet him for the very first time. As you all know, meeting Duke for the very first time is quite the trip. I've been getting to know the Duke that jumped off a mountain on Ipanema Beach in Brazil, riding a hang glider with no previous experience, and lived to tell the tale. I've been getting to know Duke the brother, who forged special bonds with his siblings, uniquely customized to each one, whether it was Jesse, Matt, Colleen, Monty, or Tracy. Or Duke the son, who considered himself lucky that his father, Steve, married his mother named Lucky. I've been learning about Duke the prankster, who convinced a lady or two or three that he was Paul Newman's son. I've gained insight into Duke the leader, who celebrated those who achieved success as much as he embraced those in need of love, support, and community. I've been introduced to Duke, who bought a house in the great city of Minneapolis in his early 20s, cherished it, and lived there till the day he died. Now, for those of you who knew Duke well, you know that it was a little funny that he lived in the middle of the city. He was an avid hunter, fisherman, and gardener who seemed to feel most at home in the countryside, freezing in a deer stand, fishing on a frozen lake, or gliding across the water in a duck boat. He was also one to let you know when he was a little pissed off about something. He vented with me frequently about the hassles of living in the city. He'd call me, "Luke, somebody stole the tabs off my truck again." "Well, Dad, I think I can go online and we'll order you a replacement." "Luke, somebody stole my gas can out of my garage. I can't find the gas can." "Well, Dad, did you maybe put the gas can on the other side of the garage?" "I found the gas can." He often talked about his dream of moving up north, building a log cabin and being one with nature, away from all the hustle and bustle. In the last few weeks, it's saddened me to realize he never made that move. But the other day, I had a conversation with a pair of my dad's neighbors. A woman a couple doors down and her 20-year-old son who was visiting her. We were in the front yard and she was asking me about Duke and what happened. And her son said, "Mom, who are you guys talking about?" And she said, "Well, Duke, he was the neighbor here, you know, the one who was always talking to everyone on the block. You know, he was helping the lady across the street. He was the guy who was always out in the community." And that's when it hit me. He loved his dream of moving up to the country, but he loved being around all of us more. He loved his community. The last 5 years of his life, he and his dear friend Corey, who passed away last May, forged an incredible and oftentimes entertaining friendship. Corey suffered from long-term physical and mental impairments from a car accident decades ago. And Duke would pick him up, take him to Canterbury Park to bet the horses, take him to my shows, and even make dinner for him most nights a week. That's community. Duke would trade dinners, tomatoes from his garden, or just stop by to visit his German neighbor across the street, Ingrid, and her son Rolf. That's community. Duke would call me and Martha when a litter of kittens would show up in his garage. And as much as he'd complain about it, he'd welcome us over to trap them and place them at a local foster rescue. That's community. As his mother, and my grandma Lucky has been in the hospital over the past month, he drove there often, both with and without me, to unite with his siblings and his nieces and nephews in solidarity for the family matriarch. I heard a palpable worry in his voice when he'd talk about his mother. But being around his family brought a certain excitement to his voice too. That's community. That's family. When it came to raising me, when it came to raising his son, there was no door he wouldn't knock down, no sacrifice too great, no dream too out of reach. That's love. That's a gift, and I'll be thankful for that gift every day of my life. He was so proud of me, but I hope he knows how proud we all were of him. He began his career as a cement finisher with the city of Minneapolis. Later started his own construction company, managed my music career, worked as a stagehand backstage for artists including the Rolling Stones, Taylor Swift, and Kenny Chesney, and was featured as an extra in 3 motion pictures, one of which was a Coen Brothers film. The photos are in the back later if you want to check them out on the big screen. Duke was a shining, intelligent, charismatic, and talented soul. And he wore his imperfections on his sleeve in bold print, in a way that inspired others to do the same. And, as he liked to say, if he couldn't dazzle you with brilliance, he would baffle you with bullshit. My dad passed away suddenly, and it turns out he had an enlarged heart when he died. But he had an even bigger heart when he lived, and boy, did he live. Christmas was hard this year. New Year's was hard this year. But something that we can all learn as we honor Duke together is that hard doesn't mean bad. Difficult does not mean impossible. Duke could take the saddest day and make it funny. He could take the darkest moment and make it light. So let's make him smile and let's walk together in his light. In this room, there is sadness, there is grief, and there is pain. But as we sit in this room, let us not forget to keep the door open for joy. Recall that warm, electric feeling you'd get when Duke walked into a room. That's joy and happiness calling. And it's okay to take a load off and answer the call. Now, as my dad liked to end conversations, I'm going to leave you with one more thing. My dad and I organized a lot of concerts together. And in a minute, together, we're going to put on one more for you. But at the end of my shows, there'd be applause, and when my dad was there, I was the luckiest kid on earth because that meant Dazzlin' Diamond Duke was in the crowd leading the way. But now I think it's time for us to give him a round of applause for a life well lived. Please join me.